It's time to unleash the expert. What is he an expert on? Relationships, sex, spirituality, and rediscovering yourself beyond the trauma. Get ready to unleash more purpose, passion, and pleasure in your life. Here's the expert himself, Mr. Brannon Patrick.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Brannon Patrick Show. I am so lucky today. I actually have the first guest that I've ever had on this show back with me today. So, Michael, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. You're a regular on the show now.
Hey, I love it.
I love talking to him. So he's my brother-in-law. So we go back a ways. I just love the way he breaks down deeper concepts, and he understands psychology on a level that I think a lot of people don't. And a lot of it just comes from his own work and his own research and his own stuff. So we're going to break down some specific important things about the way we think today, and then talk about how we can shift our perspective some as well. So Michael, with that introduction, talk to me a little bit about how our belief systems affect our ability to choose.
Absolutely. Thank you again so much for having me.
Mm-hmm.
I think that belief is one of these big things that we don't really think about all that often.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing just a little bit about how beliefs function can have a huge impact on your day-to-day life.
But, you know, I was just running groups, and it's crazy. You know, days have certain themes in them.
Yeah.
And we were talking about this in those groups.
Yeah.
And then we're talking about it on the podcast. And what we were talking about is how a lot of what we do in our life and a lot of what we create come from this belief system that is running the show. But in many ways, we're unconscious of it. Absolutely. We're not even aware that the beliefs are actually even there running the show.
Yep.
And so we just keep doing what we're doing, wanting different results in our life, but unconsciously doing that.
Yep. I mean, it's the definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different
result.
And a lot of times we don't realize that our beliefs have put us into a box where there is no win. It's a lose, 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 no matter what we do.
Yeah.
And that's because our beliefs, so what we believe to be true about the world dictates what options we think we can choose from.
Okay.
And that dictates what we are going to go after.
Okay. So let's slow down for a second, and I'll interpret Michael talking today. So.
I get a little philosophical.
Okay, so what we believe in the world dictates our choices. What do you mean by that?
So say, for example, I'm in a room and I see two doors, a red door and a blue door. If I think those are the only doors in the room, I'm going to choose between the red door or the blue door to get out of the room.
Okay.
But if I say it's dark behind me and if I turn around and turn on the lights and there's three other doors, there's a purple door, a yellow door, a red, like I haven't seen all the options. But if I simply believe that those are my only choices and I open both those doors and it's a brick wall, then, oh no, I'm stuck in this room forever.
So what you're saying is, if we're unconscious, if we're like in our own paradigm, like in our own perspective paradigm, and we can only see a certain thing, we don't realize that there's doors elsewhere to even go to, because all we're focused on is those things in front of us.
And how we're interpreting it. So a lot of times we get stuck in like one narrative of like, I'm a bad husband, or like I'm a terrible mom, or like whatever narrative comes up. But that may or may not actually be true.
I deal with this all day long, like with my groups, with my clients. People will talk and they'll be like, well, of course, you know, like my wife's not going to love me because of this or that, or I'm the worst ever because I've done these things, and so I can't get her to love me, and it's story. It's just all this stories in the head,
wrapped in stories.
And then we have those beliefs, we go act on those beliefs, which actually prove our beliefs true, which reinforce our paradigms, which keep only two doors right in front of us, and that's all that we see.
Choose red or blue, no other option.
That's it. That's it. Do you know Byron Katie? Do you know?
I do not.
Oh, you got to look up Byron Katie. So, she is like, she discovered this way to just like, trauma? She has her own story of healing. She was suicidal. She was at the end basically. And like, she had an epiphany of a way to shift perspective and shift belief. and to open up another door.
Yeah.
And so she goes through this process, and once you learn it, you can't unlearn it. And it's
Yep.
like, uh-oh.
Yep. Absolutely.
Like, I'm not stuck in my
Yeah.
paradigm anymore.
Yep. Well, and this is where I feel like it's really powerful to talk about what kinds of medicines and things that we can do that really help open up that space.
Okay, so you just said the word medicine, and
Yeah.
I'm a huge plant medicine guy. We're going
Yeah.
to Peru in a month.
Yeah.
And this topic fits together so well with psychedelics.
Yes.
For a reason. And I think if you haven't done a journey before, you might not fully understand it.
For sure.
Yeah. But like, I totally understand it. So we're going to try to explain it a little bit. How can plant medicine actually shift belief systems?
I have a great analogy for this. So let's say that you're in Vegas and you're at like a show, like a Penn and Teller magic show.
Okay.
Right. And you're seeing the woman get sawed in half and you're like, oh my, she's getting sawed in half. And it's like this big thing, right?
Right.
If you genuinely believe that the woman is getting sawed in half, that trick has so much power over you.
Oh yeah.
You're like, what is happening?
Yeah.
You're like, oh, is she okay?
You're right.
But if you know how the trick works, if you know that there's somebody actually folded up in the legs and there's somebody folded up in the head and no one's actually getting cut in half, it's totally fine. Once you see how the trick works, you can't unsee it.
Right.
And as soon as you see it, then the emotional pull that story has on you evaporates.
Yes.
There's no one getting sawed in half. It's not shocking to you. It's just someone.
This is a perfect analogy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like when you look at a picture and there's hidden things in the picture.
Yep.
And once you see those hidden things, you look at that picture again and you can't not see those things. They're there. They're just there. They're like, you can't not see it.
Yep.
So, but Michael, my question is like, okay, if I can't see other doors, I can't see these other things.
Yeah.
And we're talking about psychedelics how can I start to open my mind up to other possibilities?
Absolutely. This is where I think the sacramental use of psychedelics is incredibly important for our mental health.
You said that interesting, the sacramental use.
Yes.
What do you mean?
What I mean by sacramental use is purposeful and ceremonial. You are doing it for a specific reason. And in my field, that is to clean stuff out of your soul,
Yes.
to reset yourself.
Yes.
And I think that it's really important that periodically we go in and challenge our beliefs by testing them against psychedelics.
Ooh, periodically we go in and challenge our beliefs by testing them against psychedelics. That's interesting. So what this is kind of what I've heard and what my theory is and my experience is our ego, our system to protect us, to survive in this world gets activated. And a lot of times what triggers our ego to really protect us is that we have these belief systems that say, I'm not going to be loved. I'm not going to be accepted. So therefore I better kick in and take care of this and create this so that I'm accepted and everything's okay.
Yeah.
And what the psychedelics do is they help your ego back down. Right.
Well, yes, to some degree. I think that what they do is our ego really runs on heuristics. So they're these rules of thumb. It's like a lot of quick things to make things easier for us to navigate the world. But we can get over cluttered with a bunch of different rules. It's kind of like when you boot up your computer, if you haven't restarted it in a long time and you have all these programs running, your computer gets really slow and sluggish. You need to shut it down and restart it. Same kind of thing here. Our beliefs can get really sluggish and kind of keeping us stuck in this place. And when you move into a psychedelic experience, what happens is it shifts the way in which you are perceiving the world. And what that does is it forces you to engage with the world in a different way. And this is where I really love to talk about the nature of belief, because a belief that does not hold the fundamental resonance of truth oftentimes cannot survive even a subtle shift in perspective.
Okay, let's interpret that one.
Yeah.
A belief that doesn't hold, what did you say?
The fundamental resonance of truth
can't survive
a shift in perspective.
Okay.
So think about the woman getting cut in half.
Okay.
If I believe that woman is getting cut in half.
Mhm.
That is my belief. But it does not hold the fundamental resonance of truth. She's not actually getting cut in half.
It's not truth.
It's not truth. So if I have any shift in perspective around what's happening there, I see the legs or I see anything else, all of a sudden that belief evaporates and it cannot come
Because
in.
truth wasn't there.
Truth wasn't there. And once you recognize, oh, there's no truth there, it's gone.
Right. But that's so fascinating because from a young age, we start to take on agreements and take on beliefs that are not true.
Yes.
So we operate under systems of unlovability.
Yes.
I'm not okay. And so when we have experiences that shift our perspective, those beliefs can actually shift because they're not true.
Oh, yes.
That's what you're saying.
Once you see through the trick, you can't unsee it.
Right. Right.
And that's where I feel like the power of sacramental psychedelic use is so important, of really going deep to try to get to the core of what you are. And at our core, we are love.
Yes.
That's the best way that I can describe it.
I know it.
Like,
and
and we're all the same. There is a fundamental spark that is in me, that is the same spark that is in you.
Right.
And that recognition of the other, and of the sameness of the other is something that is a recurring theme, especially with people using psychedelics in a ceremonial space.
Well, so if we are love and what you're saying, and I'm believing a bunch of bullshit about myself because my dad abandoned me or my wife left me
and the stories that come along with that.
I was dyslexic and I couldn't pass a test in school. So now I'm the worst ever and I'm awful and I'm terrible and I'm the worst.
It's elementary for me.
Then all of a sudden, I have
Yeah.
an experience. Let's say I have a psychedelic journey.
Yeah.
And I experience unconditional love.
Yeah.
And light and being seen and known and all of those beliefs that I thought were true and that I was under my whole life. Oh no, I just experienced the opposite of that. That felt amazing. I loved that. And it doesn't like, you can't explain it fully.
Sure.
The shift in belief system and perspective happens on a soul level.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so you shift into that on a soul level and it's like, now I know something different. I know something more because I had that experience.
Well, because there's truths especially truth that we try to put into words. Words are not truth. They're an abstraction from truth. We try to describe truth.
Right.
But truth can only be experienced in the present moment.
Interesting.
And so that's one thing that I think especially sacramental psychedelics do, is it really forces you into the present moment. Be here in this ritual, in this moment, doing this thing for this purpose. Nothing else matters. And then being deeply present.
Hey, I know. I stared at a blade of grass for like 4 hours.
Yes. Yes. And
it
there's
was
something
beautiful.
Special about that. And then you were with that blade. And when you're
amazing
in that moment, you're not thinking about the past. You're not thinking about the future. You're just with the truth of the present.
Right.
And too often, I think we get really sucked into the future, into that anxiety, or we get pulled into the past with regret and guilt and all of these things. But these are all stories.
Right.
But the only thing we can do is act in the present.
Right. You're right. Interesting. And the psychedelic basically demands that.
It kind of forces it.
Yeah.
Like, you don't really have much of a choice.
Well, and that's where a bad trip often can come, is when you think that, like, nope, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stay here battling it, like, not allow this in, not let this happen. Right.
I'm going to try to control.
Yeah.
Well, and that's where, so an interesting thing, I'll just speak from mushrooms because that's like the main experience space that I have. But I actually think the danger is not taking too much. The danger is taking too little.
Oh, interesting.
Especially if you're trying to go in to clean something out of your soul. If you take too little and you can cognitively, like, really resist the experience, you become a rock in a hard place.
Right.
You're just trying to
because you're stuck between the two. Your old belief system is saying, I don't want to shift in perspective.
Well, because your old belief system doesn't want to die.
Right.
And there are people that feel like they're going to die.
Right.
Because letting go of these stories that run your identity can feel like death.
Yep.
And sometimes things need to die so there's space for renewal.
Yep. I want to share with you a Gabor Mate quote. So Gabor Mate is like the leading clinician researcher on trauma healing, and he's gotten into psychedelics as a modality for treating trauma.
Yeah.
And one of his famous quotes is, "It's not what happens to you that really matters. Yeah. It's what happens inside of you when something happens that really matters.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
So do you see what he's saying there?
Oh, absolutely.
Because the same thing could happen to me and you at the same time. And you could interpret that as the world is ending. And I could interpret that as the world is awesome.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
But the same thing happened.
Totally.
And so now what's called your reticular activator, or the thing that, so if you think the world is ending, then you're going to see the world is ending, and you're going to see all the evidence of that. And your brain does that. It gathers evidence of the belief that you have, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good point.
Yeah. And so now you're going to go create, I need to prepare for the world ending because that's what's happening.
Yeah.
That's what's going to go on, right? Now, look where we're at here. Well, the same thing happened to me and you.
Yeah.
The same thing. Now you're in creation mode. You're in manifestation mode.
Yeah.
Right? And you are going to manifest that unless we can come back to when the Gabor Mate's quote, it matters what happens inside of you.
Yes.
Now, the psychedelics, and this is where it just, in my experience, is incredible.
Yeah.
Like it healed in many ways my inner child. It took me on a journey that's deeper than I can explain in words.
Yes.
Which shifted the way that I view everything.
Yes.
And so, although I've had these automatic constructs and automatic beliefs come up and like, this is how the world is, boom, it like slapped me. It was like, well, and I shouldn't say slap me because it was actually beautiful and gentle,
but intense, and can be very abrupt.
And hard work. Yeah. That's where they talk about like legalizing psychedelics. I'm like, people aren't going to go crazy on those. You know?
No, that's not something you want to do every day.
No.
As like somebody who is like a practitioner of this, like that's not something you want to do every day.
No.
Nobody wants to do that.
No.
Because you got to like prep for that. Like there's a lot, it brings stuff up. You have to work after that.
Absolutely. So, okay, I want to shift gears a little bit, Michael. Last time I went to Peru, I took a big speaker with me, and we were on this like compound that was beautiful, and I just blasted this really calming, peaceful music. And some of the feedback that I got back was that the music was so important to the people doing it, that they like, it was so drastically vital to their experience. And I with your experience, Michael, talk about that.
Ooh, I have so much to say on this topic because this is my nerd space. So when I first started guiding psychedelic journeys, I was searching through a lot of different, I'm a nerd. I like to go into like harm reduction strategies and all of the research and blah, 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 blah. And I came across this Terence McKenna talk, and this is the thing that fundamentally shifted my whole trajectory. Is listening to Terence McKenna, and he was talking about how if you find yourself in hell during a trip, so if you're having a bad trip, and I use that word loosely because I don't think there's such thing as a bad trip. I think there are trips we're not prepared to handle.
They're still good for you.
It's good for you. I mean, most of my high dose journeys have been absolutely horrendous, and I wouldn't trade them for the world. Right. Anyway, I digress. But Terence said that if you find yourself in hell during a trip, the best thing you can do to get out of hell is sing. He's like, not only does it oxygenate your body and get blood flowing and get the medicine processing through you faster, he's like, but music, unlike anything else, has the power to align your mindset and get yourself out of that dark place. So I took this whole idea of, if you can sing your way out of hell, then logically, can you sing your way into heaven? And that's kind of where my whole program was born out of. Creating music is absolutely vital. And so having the right music with you and having the right music on board can be an incredible, powerful tool in getting to where you're wanting to go on your journey. Yeah.
That has definitely been my experience. And it makes sense, Michael, because to me, music it's energy in motion.
Yeah.
And we're all energy in motion. Yeah. And so when we're busted wide open by the medicine and we're flowing with our energy, and then the music can come in and really shift. And I love what you just said. Like, if you're in a dark, dark place, if you can just get music going, it's going to shift some energy for
I mean,
you.
because think about it. Even not on psychedelics.
Right.
If you're having a really terrible day,
Right.
there are songs you can put on that will help you feel better.
Yeah.
Like
and
more,
it works.
And
Yes.
it works
Yes.
reliably. I know I call these heart songs. I have multiple heart songs that I know if I need a certain kind of energy, I can sing my ass off and get that song, and I know I will be having a better
I have
day
my
after.
playlists. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what the music does for me now, it's amazing, is it takes me back. Like you said, we only have the present moment. That's the only truth.
Yep.
In the present moment, I can play that music that takes me back to those experiences.
Get to connect back in.
Yeah, that where I felt that unconditional love.
Yes.
Where I felt so good. And so then it reminds me of my new perspective, of my new paradigm that I'm living in. And it reminds me on a soul level when I hear the rhythm, when I hear the beat, when I feel the music.
Yeah. And so I think it's beautiful that we're talking about the lovely uplifting side of music, but I really want to touch on the other side also, in that part of what I find to be really powerful about these kinds of ceremonial practices is if you have the right music on board, it allows you to touch onto much more difficult and sensitive places in a way that you can feel more empowered to do so. So
would you suggest to play some of that darker music, or
I would suggest that, so in the ceremony,
sad, dark,
so
whatever
in the
music,
ceremony
lonely?
that I run, it's not all happy and uplifting.
Right.
There we go through grief, we go through anger, we go through pain.
Right.
And the music really holds you through that because you know that it's there the entire time, that it has a resolution, that it's bringing you to a place, but it allows you to sit in something that is deeply uncomfortable and be able to be with it without trying to escape from it.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, part of the psychedelic experience is really learning that the only way out is through. And we cannot just mask our emotions. We cannot just push down this energy. You have to process through it.
Yes.
And I feel like there's a lot of times where if you know, so there's a lot of people that have a song that they just like love to cry to.
Right.
I've definitely had multiple of those where it's like, oh, this song just feels really good to cry to.
Yeah.
Putting some of those into a playlist for yourself can be a really powerful experience on a journey.
Yeah.
It's not all just uplifting. Sometimes we really need to touch those darker, more painful, sensitive places in our soul as well.
Yeah. You know, you put the two together, and also things like light and color and those type of things are important too. But you put the music with that journey, and it's such a deep healing experience that it can actually shift your paradigm, and shift your perspective, which then shifts the way that you're viewing the world, shifts the way you're showing up in the world, and shifts the outcomes that you're getting in your life.
Absolutely.
Right?
Well, and this is what the research is bearing out. I mean, there's multiple studies that are showing, especially most of the studies are in the veteran space, but veterans with PTSD, there are multiple studies showing a 70% cure rate on a single mystical experience. But that's the like quote unquote here is it's only with people that have reported having a mystical experience, which is this kind of dissolving of self.
Yes.
Those people report a 70% cure rate.
Wow.
From a single dose.
Wow. That's incredible.
It's wild.
Yeah. Yeah.
How are we not like, well, and I am really glad that this conversation is really starting to become more mainstream.
Yeah.
Like even here in Utah.
5 years ago, we'd be a couple druggy.
Yeah, totally.
Like, crazy hippie druggy.
Totally.
And a lot of people still think that, but yeah.
Absolutely.
But you're legally administering psilocybin and doing journeys.
Yes.
Here in Utah.
Yes.
Yeah. So talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I run an organization called Mind Medicine Ministry, and we are a member of the Divine Assembly. The Divine Assembly is our local magic mushroom church. They're an absolutely lovely organization. What Mind Medicine Ministry is focused on is the intersection between live music, what I call secular spiritualism, which is meeting people wherever they're at, and the sacramental use of psychedelic mushrooms.
Okay.
So what I do is a musically guided journey where I basically sing you up into the peak of your journey. And then I play instruments and do different things, leave you for about 2.5 hours to kind of do what you're going to do in the space. And then I sing you back into the shared reality. So that's where I try to give people the tools that they need. So we move through all of these different types of emotions, and I try to give you all of the musical tools you could need to be able to deeply engage and learn about who you are.
Well, you know, Michael, it's interesting because you just kind of in talking about what you do, you just kind of summed up everything we've been talking about. Because what you've done is you've taken this whole thing, psychedelics, you put it into an experience and a process for people to actually get the most out of their journey.
Absolutely.
Right?
And I kind of I like to think that part of what my specialty is people who are really scared to go. Because going through part of my process is we have to go through all of the music beforehand. So you know what's happening in the playlist and when and why. And I've found that people being able to have that knowledge going in allows them to really melt into the experience. And they know that I'm going to be there with them the whole time, holding that space and performing this program. Because for me, it's performance. This is my performance outlet as a musician. It's like where I get to like show my soul and sing for you.
Right. That's amazing.
Thank
Michael.
you.
Yeah. So how do people find you?
So if you go to mindmedicineministry.org or on Facebook and Instagram at Mind Medicine Ministry.
So if you're looking for a journey, and you know, Michael, well, you said this earlier, and I just want to reiterate it. From all of my experiences, your intention needs to be right.
Absolutely.
And then the set and the setting and the administration of it needs to come from a place that's very thought through, and intentional as well, right? And that's what Michael's talking about. Is he's very intentional, very hands-on, very involved in making sure everything is smooth and safe, and that the process works. So, and it's the same thing we do in Peru. Like we're that way in the Sacred Valley as well.
It should be.
So yeah, if you're interested, check Michael out. If you're doing your therapy and you're doing your trauma work, or even if your relationship is really, really struggling, there's a reason. And shifting some beliefs and shifting some perspectives can change everything about the outcomes that you're getting in your life. So best money ever spent when it comes to therapy.
Absolutely.
Right?
Well, and I want to point out too that people are a little hesitant in this space because of the legality issues. And one, there's kind of 2 points that I want to make on this. Is one, that what I am doing is perfectly legal. This is my religious practice. My religious practice is facilitating deep spiritual experience for others through the sacramental use of psychedelics. Which
sounds like religious practice.
It is. And I have a bunch of writings on the ministry website of what my beliefs are and how that functions. But the second thing that I want to talk about is, even in this state of Utah, this state is shifting pretty dramatically. Around looking at these things from an objective perspective. Of like the research is overwhelming. And it is going to be very soon where this will be legalized in the medical setting. And that is such a lovely, lovely thing that we need here.
I'm so proud of, I know some legislature, some members of the legislature, and I'm proud of Utah.
Absolutely.
Like for this, I think they're going to shock some people. You know, with being one of the first states. So,
but good for us for leading the way.
Absolutely. So you guys, thank you so much for listening. If this is helpful, please share it, leave a review. You can mention Michael by name and go check him out. And really appreciate you guys. We'll see you.